I think they have some of the most important topics immediately post-lunch, right? We talk a lot about how consumer expectations are evolving. But I think the key is how do you meet those consumer expectations, right? And that's where we're going to learn more about how do you go about understanding and designing supply chain strategies to meet those consumer expectations. Very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Anand Darbhe. I'm partner with the Mumbai office of McKinsey. Omnichannel is a reality. It's a significant part of multiple sectors. We spoke a lot about how consumer expectations are evolving and setting new benchmarks. Every few months, there are so many different segments to understand and serve, and it's very important that you sort of look at omni-channel in a very holistic way and understand what are the skills and capabilities from a supply chain perspective that you need to master to deliver that consumer experience. And to discuss more about that, we have this fantastic panel. I think a very diverse set of sectors, very rich experience from an institution's perspective, leading institutions, and all leaders who have worked across multiple roles to sort of meet the challenges that have been there over the last many years in the Indian context. So without further ado, let's start the conversation. We will look at the topic from various perspectives, and I want to start, Venkat, I wanted to start with you, right? When you look at omni-channel and the various sets of consumer segments to serve, how do you really think about designing a supply chain to, meet those experiences?
Thanks, Anand. Good afternoon to all of you. So just to start the conversation, I think I myself was a consumer, right? And the way I said the trends in the channel, which also when you go back and look at from the other side of the table and try to meet those expectations, it's getting difficult and difficult. I mean, so we have to differentiate the proposition that we have to give through omni-channel. At the same time, the timelines to meet those expectations are getting shorter and shorter. And as everybody wants to make more and more margins, there is a higher expectation to make more and more money through the channels. So it's not an easy balance. I think we start all the way back from the value chain. I think looking at differentiation while you are making the products itself. And as the channel continues to grow, the scale is still not there. So it is very important to make the product differentiation even in the technologies where you produce the product. So brilliant engineers do a lot of work in trying to see if we can produce an omni-channel product and a traditional product at the same time, so that you don't get into the complexities of scales not being there and incurring higher costs when you do the changeovers and all. And then as it comes into the front of the channel, I think then you start looking at differentiating how do you serve the customers? How do you serve through the channel? It is very important, and especially being in cold chain, it gets even more because the chocolates have to travel through the cold chain. So it gets even difficult for us because we can't be depending on every possibility available in the market. We have to be exclusively doing it ourselves. So when you get to the front end of the supply chain, so there's a lot happening. I would say that everything that I say today would happen. We start looking at, can we skip one of the touch points, not even going to the distributors and go directly to the some of the modern trade stores, or even so today we serve to the most of the modern trade distribution centers, which is again a touch point for us. So is there an opportunity to start going to the stores? And we do this well in some of the countries. It's not completely new to India, but I think we also do in some countries like Philippines and all. We reach out to literally every modern trade store in the country on ourselves. So there's a lot of effort happening in redefining the way we would go into the market, in the route to market, and go directly to the stores rather than going to the warehouses of the customers. There's a set of a different, one of the panelists probably would put it, right? When it comes to e-commerce, it's slightly different, right? There the customization has to further enhance. So we are looking at transforming some of our distribution centers into customization centers and do a very, very last mile customization and try to reach the customers within the time frame that you have to still deliver. So it starts all the way from the back of the value chain till the time it reaches either some of the modern trade stores, or in some cases like e-commerce and quick commerce, even by the time it reaches the consumers.
Yeah, thanks, Venkat. I think that's a good way to look at it, right? As an end-to-end perspective, correct? Swami, just from your perspective, in fashion, correct? How do you, it's sector which is very difficult to estimate accurately from a trends and demand perspective. How do you look at designing a supply chain to meet an consumer experience?
In terms of designing fashion, when we started fashion distribution a decade back, we used to believe, I think even now it is true for physical retail. We used to keep bulk of our SKUs in a single SKU in a single warehouse. We never used to distribute it to too many locations. Because the complexity of number of SKUs, it is very difficult to predict which SKU will sell exactly in which region. So that is the way we used to operate. With the omni-channel coming in, the models have changed. Models have changed in the sense, one is to, we now believe in positioning our inventories closer to the market. Again, in this is not easy. It's easy. It is to be done with lot more of data in terms of what is likely to do well in each of these regions, affinity to the assortment in the region, the overall likely performance. Again, these all need to be done very actively. Gone are the days that you decide, I will position this in this, and that's the end of it. What we believe is that it needs to be constantly actively managed. Distribution needs to be actively managed in fashion, especially on how much you will keep in deep reserves and how much will you be locating in the forward in terms of for fulfilling omni-channel capabilities. The other piece which we have learned is that the omni-channel also has brought in a lot of information to us, because we have not only information of what the customers buy. In physical retail, we only get information of what consumers actually buy. Here we have information from multiple channels in terms of D2C and the digital platform. We get a lot more information in terms of what consumer is showing interest by buying, not buying. A lot more information is available compared to what we used to have before. This is very rich, and we are able to use this. And again, these are all work in progress. When I say we need to constantly learning this game of doing it better using information which is being additional information which is available to us. This is again a critical piece of designing how will I fulfill my supply chain and where will I keep how much. And the other difficult part of the fashion supply chain is we are all responsible for it, is the reverse supply chain, meaning a lot of goods come back. In terms of goods come back in the sense there is a consumer buys 3, returns 2, or buys 3, returns 1. This is a practice, this is something which consumers are also experiencing, because they're able to make the choice. They're able to, sometimes I'm told consumers buy 2 sizes and say which size is suitable for me and return the other one. So these are part of the channel. That is the behavior of the channel, and we need to build reverse capabilities at speed. If the reverse, what is coming back, takes too much time to be ready for sale, you lose, your availability goes for a 6 in terms of what the next subsequent consumers who come in to browse. So it is extremely important to even manage the reverse as well and again, it is again a challenge. Technology again plays a big part here. We have put in technology so that we put it back for sale as quickly as possible, and also physically able to refurbish them, check them, and put it back. So it's a lot. It has been a lot of learning in omnichannel for me personally and for the organization in the last 6 to 7 years.
Thanks. Manish, can I bring you in? I think you operate in a sector which is very diverse consumer preferences, and also regulations play a big role. How do you look at it from when you're designing a supply chain to meet the omni requirements?
I think if I could build upon what Venkat and Swami said some time ago, it is finally boiling down to the same three things. You understand your market, understand your consumer, and keep track of information. When you talk about a category like alcoholic beverages, marketing to India or distributing in India could be as difficult as distributing to a continent. What the consumer wants in Chennai is very different from what the consumer wants in Punjab. On top of that, the pricing, the route to market is all heavily influenced and controlled by the government. And on top of that, that could change every 2 years or 3 years, and that makes it so much more evolving and complex. On the other side, we have our consumer who's getting on digital, who's happy to share his or her preferences, and is premiumizing like in a hurry. Almost 100 million consumers get added on to the legal drinking age in the next few years. So all of this throws a lot of information, and then how do you track this information to be able to take decisions, and how do you separate actionable information from information which is nice to know is the key challenge behind creating value. And if you are able to do that, you would create value, because from our perspective, you're talking about very few retail stores and very few bars and clubs across the country. So therefore, for every consumer touch point, you need to create value for the customer, for the consumer, and for the society at large. Unless you do that, you would never be able to meet that challenge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, fantastic. I think I like the point you made, which is it's almost like supplying to a continent, right? And how do you really sort of look at meeting those diverse set of requirements with the power of data, right? Jasjeev, can I sort of bring you in from your perspective as you're sort of involved with a young brand building, this? How do you sort of look at designing the supply chain to meet the requirements in an omni environment?
Yeah, sure. Am I audible? Yeah. I am more on the side of the retailers. So first I'll give a disclaimer, and retailers will understand it more, that adjacency matters a lot. And in my case, I have an adjacency of a big liquor guy and the other side a big chocolate guy. So if my answers are not coherent, you know whom to blame. Okay? That's the first thing. The second point is that with such an august gathering, with the bigwigs here and really people with stellar track records, I will, and me representing Kama, which is just growing its wings, and and me too, in this industry. So I will keep the heavy lifting and the right tech and the functional aspects to them, and I would like to speak a little bit on the softer aspects. And my first point, trying to deliver the omni-channel experiences. One, omni-channel and sustainability are the two most fashionable words used in retail, but very difficult to walk the talk, especially for smaller players. Right now, my co-panelist was mentioning, a lot of clothes get returned. So sustainability goes out of the window from all the return logistics and everything. So consumers also need to be, I think, more responsible towards that. The other aspect on omni-channel is, once the business is also omni-channel. It's very important for the commercial setup also to think omni-channel. And once that resolve comes in, especially in my industry, my company, we have to go back to the basics to bring it up, ground up, look at the supply chain being highly customer-centric, not have in the warehouse earmarked stock for various channels and probably merge it, have a single vision of inventory all through, have a decent network, be digitized, get to the basic order management systems, move on to end-to-end planning, and finally seeing, rather I would say, like for a company like Kama, use your real estate. Like we have 65 physical stores which are closest to the customer as our dark stores, delivery centers, or omnichannel fulfillment centers, whatever you may call them. Use them well. And obviously along with logistics. So this is my take on how omnichannel looks for Kama and for, I think, bulk of our sized retail companies.
If I could just add a little bit on what Swaminathan was talking about on the reverse side. As a 3PL, we have the fortune of working with, close to about 200 different customers. So we get to really see up close and personal the challenges faced by different companies across the board, and especially on reverse, right? If you look at it today, right, I think a lot of the supply chains sort of have not been prepared to meet the challenges of omni-channel. To give you a classic point, in terms of in the fashion space, traditionally most of the returns always from the store come back to a central warehouse for processing. And that works well in a traditional B2B sense. But the moment you start using your forward stores to fulfill e-commerce orders, returns is a completely different challenge, because in B2B, it's seasonal. You get returns twice a year. But if you're doing e-commerce from a store, you're going to get returns every day. And we've had customers who've had returns just pile up in the store. So the store's expensive retail space is getting consumed by returns. They're getting pressure cookers back, they're getting laptops back, they're getting all sorts of stuff back, which the store is not geared to. So I think here there are multiple cases where companies have not thought through, how do I fix this part of the supply chain to handle a return in the case of e-commerce. So what some of our customers have done and what we've done for a lot of our clients is we've actually sort of set up real-time return processing centers where customers, the fulfillment happens from the store, but the return doesn't go back to the store. The return goes back to a return processing center. And that return processing center has to have very different capabilities compared to what a normal B2B return processing center would have, because there's entire gamut of claims management. You have to raise SPF claims. The marketplace has 10 different norms in terms of how they want photographs taken, videos uploaded. So this is something I can clearly tell you is that a lot of companies have not thought through this. And this is where you have to redesign your supply chain to sort of take care of these channel nuances, right? So that's something I just wanted to add.
Fantastic. I think we've sort of looked at multiple aspects of differentiation, returns from a design perspective. Moving on, I think one of the key aspects of meeting a supply chain or driving a successful supply chain is also first getting a good handle on the demand, and how do you sort of understand and forecast what the demand could be. Ankur, can I bring you in here as to how do you see the innovations in this space with respect to how do you really forecast well in this kind of an environment?
Sure. Thank you. Wish everybody a very good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. So I would say, I think a lot of my co-panelists have already kind of stated some of the basics stay same. So without repeating all the points, fundamentally it starts by a good understanding of the shopper and the consumer, and that if you are clear, finally omnichannel is a mix of multiple channels, and ultimately one product or one SKU is getting delivered to the consumer. So you need to understand that whether it is through HFS, modern retail, quick commerce, e-commerce, starts with what we call, as a supply 3.0 framework. That's our current sort of, innovation which we are bringing as we talk to enhance. And fundamentally, it will start with design, having the right supply network design, which maximizes, the first miles as much as possible, but gives as much agility towards the last mile to ensure that the right customized delivery can happen. This needs to be then complemented in terms of the demand part that you are saying, leveraging technology, but technology by first understanding what is the problem to solve. Using an AI ML to generate the right forecast can definitely give you far superior insights, but then they needed to be supported with the right physical infrastructure to be able to leverage those insights, and which is what we do today. Understanding that which SKUs will sell in which channel, and hence having the right fulfillment strategy. In addition to that agility, because we learned it in COVID, the amount of disruptions that we saw, both resilience and agility need to go hand in hand. Reliability is the key, But if you're going to sit on tons of inventory, it is going to come in the way of agility. You won't be able to do fast cycle innovations. You won't be able to bring in, fresh stocks faster. On the other hand, if you are too lean, there'll be times when, either geopolitical or some of these disruptions can kind of go awry. Supply in full is, of course, something which is paramount, something which is, which supply chain exists for, and everything else in terms of then cost and cash can be optimized. And then the design should help reduce as much nodes. As a company, we have a unique advantage, a unique model. We have 30 big distributors to whom we service, from our plants. That allows us to reduce a lot of nodes, with some of the customers talking, helping us, have a much better speed to market, and hence the, the demand trends that we get leveraging technology, we are able to kind of serve, in the last mile with some flexibility.
Fantastic. I think let me get a perspective now from a point much more closer to the consumer in the supply chain from a retail perspective, and let me bring Vineet in. Vineet, from your perspective, how do you sort of see? How do you capture the pulse of the demand trends, and how do you anticipate those trends as you're planning your supply chains?
So I think, before moving to your question first, I think V-Mart, largely we have the 450 stores. In South, we are operating in the brand called Unlimited, and rest of India, it's a V-Mart. And we have our own e-commerce platform, limeroad.com, which we recently acquired. So I think the post-COVID, everybody tried to move to the omni-channel. We struggle a lot for the omni-channel. Even some time back, when I'm talking what the revenue we are getting, we are pretty strong in the brick model, but problem is the online thing, and hardly 1%, 2% kind of the revenue was there. But recently, I can say the one thing we experimented, and it's really worked very, very strongly in the organization, though it's at the very initial stage also. We are calling it a one-click program. So the thing is that if any of the consumer customers, they are coming to the store, okay, they are not finding any kind of the size, though it's look very easy in the specialty store and the vanilla brand store. But when we are talking the departmental large size store, it's not easy to give the what consumer or the customer want immediately, the sizes, missing sizes and all. So when we did the experiment, I think around 10% kind of the consumer which they were not buying from us because of the sizes were not available inside the store. And hence, to resolve the problem, we started the one-click program. It's such an easy thing, like on the hardly a minute or 40 seconds, customer can simply scan the QR code, and they can give the order, and immediately in the 24 hours or the 48 hours nearby the store, we can do the delivery. And it's really working very good. Almost like 80-90 stores we rolled it out. So that is a one thing. Second, I think demand, when we're talking typically the fashion, the things are different when you're talking the typical, the Kerala part of the India, then the northeast part of the India, again the Srinagar, etc. I think the same product, it's working very, very good in the one region. The similar set of the size or the pattern or the fit, it's not working that good in that particular part of the India. So to resolve the things, I think it's not in the fashion. We have to do the two kind of the prediction or the demand forecasting. One is the trend, what you are saying, right? Another is obviously the volume and the quantum, what we can sell in the particular geography or the particular market or the particular store. So I think the WGSN, everybody, I believe people are using it. But I think the Omni is really helping us, because one thing, obviously the customers who are not getting physically, we are providing that. But at the same time, we have our own e-commerce platform, the limeroad.com, okay? The customer can simply see the things, and they can give the demand of those products also. So accordingly, the salesperson, sometimes we know if I'm giving some of the example, recently the 6 months, 1 year tenure, we have seen the boxy fit or the drop shoulder and the big size product in the apparel, it's moving very good. The Jain kind of the concept, okay? It was not there 1 year back in India at all. So how to give the prediction of that? So one thing is like the online platform is there. So that is helping us. The WGSN, I think that is working good. Again, we are typically, the majority of the business is 70-80% of the business is coming from the tier 3 or the tier 4 cities or the market. And that too, again, the majority of the business is coming from the typically climate change, like northern part of the India, where you have to really do the good prediction. Because every year we have seen that doing the prediction of the winter, okay? Sitting in Mumbai, you are not sensing that, but sitting in Delhi or the Gurgaon, we are sensing a lot. Like we were expect that the winter will be there in month of November, December. It was not there, right? And January, February, I think right now still the temperature is pretty cold. So how you can do the prediction, and you should not do the discounting before the things in the right place. I think those things, lot of I think things are working in the organization from the integration of the different platform, and that's the way we are working.
Fantastic. Thanks. Piyush, let me bring you in, correct? Operating in a category where obviously supply chain is a very complex one. How do you, what in your view are some of the strategies on planning and fulfillment that you are seeing being adopted to really balance the service cash cost trade-offs?
So I will start by adding something to what Vineet was saying, that forecasting and the monthly forecasting process is a little older one, right? I guess with the new technology available and with so much of data available, right? Demand sensing is something which is going to be big in that space, right? When you have the recent data, so why only to rely on the historical data? So there is so much of data, so much of signals. Customer is browsing on the website, what he has added to the cart, what page he is looking at, which stock got sold yesterday or today. So there is so much of data, and if we look at the traditional forecasting method, we rely on the historical data only, right? And it's a monthly cycle kind of process. So I guess looking at the current data, the live data is something which is going to play a big role in forecasting. And as Ankur mentioned, but it has to be supported by the infrastructure. Our factories, our entire supply chain setup has to support that. The runs, the cycle time should be shorter. The factory should be accustomed to take a changeover depending on the recent demand trend. So that is something which I believe is going to play a big role in terms of agility and in terms of the right, in terms of having the right stock at the point of sale, which will improve the sales, right? So that is in terms of forecasting. But when it comes to Pepperfry, so we are a very different category. Our product range is very huge. So we have around 20,000 furniture products listed on our website, and it's practically not possible to store all of them at 30 warehouses in India, right? The strategy is very different, and it also comes from the perspective that we need to understand the consumer very well when we are designing our supply chain, when we are designing the forecasting technique, right? Do we really want to service our consumer in one day? Do the consumer really want that sofa in one day? Maybe no, right? So what it typically means is that we have to first understand from the category perspective what the consumer is really looking for. Is the consumer looking for variety and maybe wait for 4 or 5 days for delivery? So then we give him that, right? So that is where we have designed our supply chain like that. So we work on a dual model, a hybrid model, which is make to stock and make to order kind of model. All the A-class SKUs are make to stock SKUs, which we store in our warehouses, which are fulfilled to the customer at a very fast pace. But there is a long range of SKUs which are not stored in the warehouses, which are available only as a make to order products, right? Because we want to order that variety to the consumers. We don't want to tell consumers, okay, you can have only these 100 beds. When we have 1,000 beds to show, why to limit it to 100 beds just because they are available in our warehouse? And the consumer is ready to wait for it, right? The consumer is not in such a big hurry to buy the furniture. So I guess understanding the consumer well and understanding what the consumer really wants do give us that advantage in terms of designing the right supply chain and the right forecasting technique.
Fantastic. I think demand sensing and understanding the consumer requirements being very critical. Venkat, your perspectives on some of the planning strategies that one can look at, and how do you see the role of technology in enabling, the omni-channel supply chain?
Yeah, I think we have been hearing from all the panelists, right? I think the biggest, before we go there, it's very important as the omni-channel continues to outgrow the traditional trade. One of the things that we have been very particular as an org, it's nothing to do with technology or science, it's more human things that we are trying to do is, if you have to continue to give a better value proposition to the consumer, but at the same time at a better cost, and at the same time at a better cash, which continues to be a constant pressure on all of us as a supply chain leaders, right? I sometimes feel that we are supposed to be magicians who can manage all the 3 KPIs at the same time. It's very tricky, right? It's not easy. The most important elements that we continue to build on is, if with omni channels, I think we need to build, if we have to win, if the channels have to win and if we have to win as a manufacturers, it's very important for us to start partnering. There is no way that one of us can squeeze money out of each other's. It has to be a partnership, and you have to start working together to start realizing what the consumer expectations are and deliver at a better cost and a better cash or a lower inventories. Second, I think very important element is the organizational agility itself. If you look at, in omni channels, right? We said, yeah, modern trade. Then we said hypermarkets. Then we said e-commerce. Then we said quick commerce. I don't know what's coming next. With every commerce, things change. So are we agile enough to start adapting to this? Are we agile enough to start adapting technologies? Are we agile enough to change the way we work? Right? It's very important for us to build that agility in the organization. If not, we become irrelevant very fast. I think there's softer elements which I want to build even before we get into what we are building. So if you don't get demand right, I think nothing in the value chain works well. Lot of technologies have been put in. I think AML has done really great work for us in terms of predicting, but we've done a great progress in terms of traditional trade. And modern trade, I would say we have started making some improvements, I think, but now what we have started realizing is doing it at a country level, channel level, customer level doesn't work. Now you have to start going at a regional level, channel level, customer level, because even as we heard, somewhere it's cold, somewhere it's hot, somewhere it's something else, somewhere it's Jellikattu, somewhere it is Vinayak Chauthi. The trends are different. We are one country, but geographically, religiously, or any way, other way, we are not definitely one country. So we have started breaking it down to much, much, much lower level. That's where I think technology becomes super relevant. You can't break it down to that level unless until technology supports, right? I think that's where the technology adoption is becoming more and more relevant for us to predict. We have made good progress, but I think there's still much more progress to be made in terms of adoption of technology and get to an accuracy which we all should enable us to control the value chain costs. And then the technologies come in like web scrappers today, EDIs. EDIs automate every order that comes because the customer code is different to what your codes are. If you do it manually, you have to have a fleet of these rooms to translate every order into what we would sell every day. So EDIs play a big role in transforming customer orders to our orders. Similarly, a lot of other technologies which enable us to do it efficiently, productively. The life is only going to get more complex. The value chain is going to get more complex. If you don't bring in technology, it will never be able to serve that effectively at a cost-effective level. That's where, if you ask me, is the evolving technology is going to do any harm to any of the jobs? Probably not. They'll just address the complexity that we ourselves as consumers will bring into the value chains that we do today. So, yeah, that's where
Fantastic. Yeah, Ajay, you wanted to add some?
Yeah, I think whilst forecasting is important and it's never a perfect science, I think there's some very interesting things in ways in which you can use technology. So there's a particular customer that we have that has done something very interesting. They're in the QSR space. So whilst so for example, what they do is they run campaigns. We're going to be running some mango flavor, something in different areas. They are then looking at the cues they get from the responses to the campaigns across the country. And they've very smartly integrated those cues back into their demand planning system, right? So I think as a brand, if you're able to find ways to leverage social media and bring those inputs back into your own demand planning and not just go on historical, because if you ask a salesperson for a forecast, 9 times out of 10 he's going to get it wrong, right? So why not run your campaigns, see how they perform in different parts of the country, and then start positioning inventory there to be able to meet that demand. So that was one example I thought I'd just share.
No, fantastic. No, Ajay, I just wanted to continue with you, right? With all the requirements that brands and retailers have. I think somebody who's actually make it happen on the ground, right? Day in, day out. What's your experience of, from a fulfillment perspective, what are you seeing as some of the key factors for success?
So firstly, with fulfillment, there's no one size fits all, right? So every business, every category has to have a different strategy. So I'll just give you an example. In the case of diapers, we do a lot of work with a couple of diaper brands. So there, the products are large and people need diapers very, very quickly. You can't wait for 4 days for a diaper, right? So there, in that particular category, we've had to, get inventory to about 16 of our warehouses across the country to enable the the faster same day, next day delivery, right? And also with diapers, it's a low value product and big in size. So the cost of transportation, cost of storage is high. So the strategy there is go as wide as possible. Whereas if you look at maybe with the beauty category or you look at maybe a fashion, the supply chain will be completely different. So there the fulfillment strategy would be more around for, let's say, beauty or FMCG would be how do you leverage hyper-local, right? So, earlier they were trying to build their own hyper-local by tying up with the smaller providers, but with Zepto and all of these guys coming in, the strategy has changed. So now beauty, FMCG are trying to get shelf space in Zepto and in Blinkit. And so that their cost of fulfillment comes down significantly, right? It's an outright sale there. And there too, I mean, these guys are pretty ruthless, right? If your products don't move off the shelf in 4 days, you're out, right? So that's one strategy for what beauty takes. And then, for example, with fashion, it's very different. Again, largely centralized inventory storage because the SKUs are so wide. So I think each supply chain head has to look at his own, his own segment, see where the customers are, look at the cost of fulfillment, look at the time of fulfillment, understand those sensitivities, and then sort of plan their strategies accordingly.
Fantastic. Ankur, can I bring you in? I think Venkat spoke about organization agility, correct? And very important aspect of actually adopting a lot of these things. Your perspective on, what do you see as some of the key enablers for enhancing that agility as you drive adoption, as you design supply chains in this area?
So I think Venkat said it well. I think overall, I would, organization agility is of course paramount because it is about culture, it is about your ability to embrace technology and starting with the right business problem to solve, having the right infrastructure. For me, the other point which Venkat made is also equally important. I think the losses that exist in the supply chain today are multiple fold because there are handoffs. And to be able to look at an end-to-end synchronized supply chain, which is reliable, responsive, agile, and sustainable in the current world becomes absolutely paramount. So to start with, if there is a way by which you can be agnostic to whether it is the supplier, plant, a fulfillment center, a customer, finally the shopper does not care where is the case sitting. And there is cost being added at every point. If you do not have accurate demand, it will add cost in terms of cash. If you do not have the right responsiveness, it will again add some cost in terms of the way you are moving the goods. There is the cost of reverse logistics in certain areas, either B2B or B2C. So each of these first needs to be stepped back and we need to take a look at that. What is the right framework if we were to keep only the shopper or the consumer in mind, and how close you can get to the design, and that is where the collaboration becomes important. The flow of information which can take away a lot of these losses becomes important. And definitely to do that, you require the right organizational mindset, you require the ability to use technology, because I also watch out, which I kind of believe strongly, is that sometimes we overuse technology. So if we are not clear as to what is the problem we are trying to solve, you may end up creating more systems, more processes, more losses without really kind of meeting, because these are large, complex, web-based systems, meaning it's a web of things, right? And it is important that you keep zooming out We call it as a fast framework, which is keeping the fast changing consumer and customer needs, omnichannel being a case in point, that we have seen, ensuring that the right agility to be able to deliver to that with the right supply network design, doing it in a way which is sustainable. But at the base, then comes technology to meet these needs, end to end. So that's what I would think, Anand.
Thanks. Swami, just to close, your thoughts on what strategies and how technology could be leveraged.
My experience in implementing technologies is, the biggest challenge in adopting technology is not the technology piece. That's simple. It is the change management in the organization which is the most critical. It is very difficult to set the rule in terms of when the human should keep their hands off. There is a huge tendency to not trust the system too quickly, judge the system too quickly, and start intervening manually, and collapse the complete automation process which you are looking at. So the cultural change, the change management piece is the most critical, and this is where the leadership plays a very critical role. We need to understand data, which part of your job is the machine will do better than human. We need to be very clear, and we need to acknowledge this will definitely in the long term a machine will do better. We need to be able to see through it and make sure the teams adopt it the way it is designed for. That is one of the biggest challenges in my opinion. The second, I would say, the digitization and automation also gives a lot of scope for scaling. You are able to do at scale things which you will never be able to do. That is another benefit of these adopting technologies in large organizations. And again, it plays a very important role. We also need to recognize, when we see a video, a similar kind of video is played back to you. I'm sure it is not, there is the strong master data management behind which is actually delivering this back to you again and again. It is actually, many of us in the organization believe data is manual, it's too, I would say, too non-interesting to create that data. It's a big challenge to motivate people to create that data. But if you understand the power it can deliver to you in terms of what your experience to consumers, we will push it harder than what we are currently pushing.
I think just add on what Swaminathan is saying. I think obviously it's a matter of the change management and leadership. All these things are there. But when we are talking the digitization, I think a lot of integration required with the internal system and the external also. So when we are talking the internal, like I'm just giving the example. We are keep pushing our people inside the store that there should not be any kind of the cancellation of the order. You have to pick it, pack it, and send it at the right place and all. But it's very difficult because what happened, the 50,000 to 1 lakh pieces we are keeping in the one store on an average, I am talking. And to selecting a one product, it's not the easy job. And that too, again, with the such a lesser manpower, okay? So what we did, I think the simple solution is that providing the picture of all the product. It's again, that too, again, the cloud-led thing. So that is actually helping us. So this is a one example. Because RFID and all these things, obviously it is there from the technology piece, but it's not easy to implement across all the organization. It needs its own, I think, heavy cost also. So there's a one simple example. So integration, I think, external, internal, play a very critical role.
Fantastic. I think that's a cue. So I think great thoughts. Just to summarize, if you looked at it from a perspective of design, I think the points we spoke of is look at it end to end from a perspective of how you're designing the product, so product differentiation, looking at going direct, seeing how you can skip touch points, looking at delayed differentiation using your distribution centers as customization centers. So when you look at designing your supply chain, look at some of these aspects. When you look at it from a forecasting perspective, obviously a lot of technologies are there. AI, ML is aiding in that space, but augment it with the physical infrastructure, look at demand sensing capabilities in a big way. And I think the softer aspect of don't trust the sales guys to give you a forecast, but try and leverage data, to the extent possible. And when you look at strategies, I think looking at delayed differentiation, looking at really the supply chain at a much granular level at a region, channel, customer lens, correct? Really going down to city and at a city level and really looking at what the consumer wants and how do you do it. And then from an enablement perspective, finally, I think we spoke of organization agility and the fact that, it will be important to build that as a capability across, and also looking at technology as a key differentiator by leveraging all of this in an end-to-end perspective. So I think fantastic thoughts. Thank you, panel, for sharing all of those, and look forward to the interactions. Do we